World Cultural Night, which allowed the students to be proud of their heritage, family traditions, and so forth. Also, according to Best Neighborhood, Oakland has a diversity rate of 89%, which means that there is a mixture of races living close together. This is just a map that describes and depicts a picture of like other races and ethnic cultures living together. As I mentioned earlier, the US Census did not really specify the subgroups of um, the Caucasian population, which doesn't really represent it as well, but here we also have the map.
Hello? Oh, okay. Oh my gosh. I apologize for the technical difficulties. So I will go back and follow up on my slides. So as we were talking about religion as part of our research regarding the Oak Lawn community, we found out that there are two major that there's about 59.9% of the Oak Lawn population that practices a religion, and two largest religions are Catholic and Muslim. 38.7% of the population practices Catholic, and 3.9% are Muslims. And here we can see some of the places of worship, including Catholic churches, Lutheran churches, Greek Orthodox churches, etc. And as we mentioned, the second largest religious community in Oak Lawn is a Muslim community, and most of the Muslims practice in a mosque in nearby town, Wart, and the mosque is called El Nahda. Regarding politics, during our research, we discovered that Cook County is considered mostly Democratic leaning. And in the last election of 2020, the major election, 74.2% of the population voted for Democratic candidates and 24% voted Republican. Currently, the mayor of Oaklawn is Terry Vorderer, who is also affiliated with the Democrat Party. And we discussed about some of the boundaries. Oak Lawn has natural and man-made boundaries. Oak Lawn has a natural, some of the natural boundaries are Stony Creek, which is a large river located in the Wolf Wildlife Park. And we also have the metro station that is located in Oak Lawn. This station is used by many residents to commute to different parts of the Chicagoland area. And here is the map of Oak Lawn, and it points out some of the boundaries and the community development. Here we have some images regarding the natural and man-made boundaries, including the a couple of nice images of the Stony Creek River located in the Wolf Wildlife Park and the Oak Lawn Patriot Station that is located at 9525 South Tully Avenue, Oak Lawn, Illinois. Regarding housing and zoning, we found out that the average household size is 2.62. Total numbers of household in Oak Lawn are 21,248. The average home market price for a single home is 204,000. Rent grosses around $1,072. And then we have some list of vacant homes for sale. And then we did found out that most of them are single homes that are present in the Oak Lawn area. And there were during our research, we found out there were only 3 multi-family homes that were for sale compared to the 164 single-family homes that were also for sale. And then here we have a nice explanation about the type of structures and population by household type. Type of structures that we analyzed were single units, multi-units, and mobile units. And then we also differentiated between married, male, female, and non-family. And here we can see about housing and zoning, the difference between 2006 to 2010 and 2016 to 2020. And then once again, here is some more explanation about the open spaces. We noted there are more than 300 acres of parks, recreational facilities, and open spaces. And each neighborhood in Oak Lawn has its own green oasis, 22 parks in all, each expertly planned and developed with the interest of the community in mind, which is just by doing our windshield assessment and moving around the neighborhood, we noticed they're very well utilized by the community. And then some of the activities in Oak Lawn Park District that provides are recreational activities such as playgrounds, walking paths, ball fields, picnic facilities, indoor and outdoor tennis courts, a driving range, outdoor swimming pools, an indoor ice arena, fitness centers, etc.
So here are some pictures of open spaces. Some of them include the Oak Lawn Park District, the Wolf Wildlife Park, Memorial Park. And it was unclear which ones were federally owned and state owned, but we do know that Oak Lawn prioritizes green spaces, and the Oak Lawn Park District does own 22 parks. So for the Be Well community efforts, we have Oak Lawn has a Be Well free community clinic, and that clinic has made efforts to beautify the streets of the Southwest Highway. Students of Oak Lawn have helped build a garden in front of the Be Well free clinic in hopes to make the Southwest Highway more commuter and walker friendly. And then some common spaces people hang out, or activities that we participate in. There's a gang called the Satan's Disciples. It's a Chicago-based gang. It is present in the city of Oak Lawn, and then they typically leave graffiti on light poles, playground equipment, traffic signs, commercial buildings, fences, and garage doors. For bars and nightlife, Oak Lawn is a home for the primarily bars and pubs, notably the Deja Brew and Whistle Sports Club. People often also park outside of Starbucks on 95th and Oak Park Avenue after closing hours, and it's a central hub per se for the young adult community. For family activities, Oak Lawn has the community pavilion, which is very, very popular for families, children across all ages, and age-friendly for the older population as well. They have fields for soccer, baseball, softball, basketball courts, sand volleyball courts, and parks. There's some more pictures of the commons. Pertaining to safety, the crime index is 45, making it safer than 40% of US cities. In the past year, the city had a total of 781 reports of criminal activity in Oak Lawn, which 93 cases were relating to violent crimes and 688 cases were related to property theft and damage. In Oak Lawn, the chance of becoming a victim of a violent crime is 1 in 628, while the chances of becoming a victim of a violent crime in Illinois is 1 in 239. In Oak Lawn, the chance of becoming a victim of a property crime is 1 in 85, while the chances in Illinois is 1 in 65. And Oak Lawn does provide homeless shelters and transitional resources and help those in need, or to help those in need. And then for air safety, according to the Air Quality Index scale, the quality of Oak Lawn's air is fairly good, scoring a 26. Oak Lawn's air quality is satisfactory and poses little to no risk to the community. For water, the water is drinkable and it's supplied by Lake Michigan. The tap water and bottled water supplied contain small amounts of contaminants such as lead, but it is safe for consumption. And then there's annual testing, which is completed to ensure the drinking water is within EPA guidelines. And there's an 83% high walkability of resident and job locations. There's a fair number of amenities within walking distance, and there's a good presence of sidewalks as well. For evidence of community decay, in Oak Lawn, the neighborhoods and residential areas are well kept and clean. There's little to no evidence of vandalism. And during our survey, we did not see any signs of homelessness nor homeless people in the area. And there's little to no population in the residential area. However, some trash is found on the sides of the roads in the major and busy areas of Oak Lawn. For the local paper, Oak Lawn does have their own weekly newspaper. It's called Oak Lawn Independent Newspaper. It began publishing in 1931 and it does still circulate today. This local paper can be found in front of cafes or local stores, and we did not find any bilingual newspapers or magazines during the survey. For the stores, services, and service centers of Oak Lawn, they did have a large selection of food options. However, there were more fast food chains presented compared to healthier restaurants. And some of the grocery stores are Amazon Fresh, Mariano's, Jewel, and Aldi. And there's a fresh farmers market. So every summer, Oaklawn hosts a farmers market offering an assortment of bread, cheeses, pastries, vegetables, and meats. It's located in the Village Hall parking lot, and it runs from June to mid-October from 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. daily.
To continue the stores and services centers, Oakland hosts the Children's Museum, which is one of the main attractions. It provides a lot of hands-on learning activities for our children to explore. For entertainment-wise, there are a moderate amount of gyms and service centers throughout the Oakland area. On Southwest Highway, there is a various amount of medical services, such as urgent care centers for children, the Southwest Urgent Care Center, and Dooley Health. 95th Street hosts the main shopping district with over 1,200 merchants. There's also the Wolf Wildlife Refuge, which is an observational and trail deck that gives you an opportunity to spot several native species that are on the endangered list. It also gives you a refuge at a local park district to get a great way to experience nature throughout the town. Overall, Oakland serves a wide selection of physicians that represents many specialties like chiropractic, dentistry, nutrition, physical therapy, women's health, and senior services. To ensure that the residents have access to many types of medical service, Oakland is the site of two health centers, the Oakland Station and the community-based outpatient clinic of Edward Hines VA, along with several senior living centers. Adding to that list, Oakland houses the Oakland-based Advocate Christ Medical Center and the Advocate Hope Children's Hospital. Within that site, there is the Heart Institute of Children and the Kaiser Family Pediatric Cancer Center. We have listed a variety of the stores and services available throughout Oakland. We list some fitness centers, some grocery stores, some health resources, and some other miscellaneous amenities that's provided in Oakland. Here are some pictures of some of the service centers within the area, some of the gyms and health facilities. Oakland houses a total of 21 schools. We have listed the schools breakdown. As you can see, the public school has the largest amount represented there. Continue, this is a picture of some of the local high schools that Oakland has. Far as transportation, Oakland has an average of commute time to work around 35 minutes. In this graph, you can see car transportation is the largest way that the Oakland residents get around. So and we all see that public transportation is only 8.9%. In public transportation, we've included a map of the public transportation. In Oakland, the Pace bus route runs along 95th, 87th, 103rd, Pulaski, and 111th Street. There's also a metro station located in Oakland, but there is no CTA buses or trains in the area. Oakland is about 4 miles away from the closest CTA Orange Line, and Midway is the closest airport within Oakland, which is about 4.9 miles away. And here's some pictures of the transportation services they offer in Oakland.
In regards to the health status of Oakland, we are subjected to two statistics: the mortality rates for chronic conditions, as well as the morbidity rates for chronic conditions. Let's start with the mortality rates. The first thing that falls under and worth noting is heart disease. There were recorded 900 deaths in Oakland between the years of 2013 and 2017. As for lung and bronchus cancer, recorded 35.75 per 100,000 population. Diabetes, another major contributor to the Oakland statistics, was recorded 42.64 per 100,000. Chronic lower respiratory disease came in at 32.33 per 100,000. as well as chronic liver disease and cirrhosis at a low 13.7 per 100,000. Cancer, however, recorded at 151.96 per 100,000. As for morbidity rates goes, asthma affects 8.9% of the residents of Oak Lawn. Coronary heart disease affects 6.2% of the adults, COPD 6.9%, chronic kidney disease 3%, and diabetes at 9.5%. Depression, it's worth noting that approximately 1 in 5 adults in Oak Lawn suffer from depression. It's not a statistic to take lightly. Strokes affect around 3% of the adults, and hypertension comes in at 32.10% of the adults in Oak Lawn community. Obesity is also fairly high at 26.8% of the people living in Oak Lawn. Health problems. As for pollution, according to the Air Quality Index scale, the quality of Oak Lawn's air is fairly good, scoring a 26. Oak Lawn's air quality is satisfactory and poses little to no risk to the community. Communicable diseases. As for reported diseases, chlamydia had 296.4 per 100,000 population, which was reported, which is staggering high, and who knows how many went underreported. Gonorrhea, a lot lower. Maternal and neonatal health problems. Infant mortality rates were recorded at 6.9 deaths per 1,000 births. Preterm birth rates were 5.33 births per 1,000 population. There was little to no information regarding maternal and neonatal morbidity and mortality rates. Case management. Elected officials, community representatives, neighborhood organizations, civic groups, churches, schools, business owners, government agencies, and chambers of commerce are just some members to note that are contribute to being stakeholders in the Oak Lawn community. Major hospitals previously mentioned were Advocate Christ Hospital and the Hope Children's Hospital. Drug and treatment centers found in Oak Lawn include the Project COAT, Solis Place, Christ Rehab, Chicago Area Behavioral Health Services, Drug Rehab in Oak Lawn, Advocate Christ Behavioral Healthcare. As far as vision goes, there's a lot of optometrists you can see. specifically Family Eye Physician, Creates Eye Center, Sandra Burry, American Best Eyeglasses and Contact, Davis Eye Care Associate, My Eye Doctor, and Complete Vision Center. For dental, there's Family Dental Care, Universal Dental of Burbank, International Dental of Oak Lawn, and Forest Tower DDS, a part of the Oak Lawn Dentist. As we transition to part 2 of our windshield survey, we're going to be briefly going over the data analysis. Some strengths to take note of in Oakland. Oakland has hospitals that are located nearby to most live here. There's little to no resources for the home. Anyone with a car in Oakland has access to recreation, healthy activities such as gyms, fitness services, and parks. There are plenty of outdoor activities, sidewalks, and parks. It's a safe neighborhood with a very low crime index. Weaknesses to take into consideration: the lack of public transportation for individuals without cars, the lack of access to healthcare due to multiple factors, including but not limited to the lack of transportation, uninsured, and language barriers. There are a lack of healthy food options. Mostly fast food is located in the Oakland area. There's little to no presence of non-Christian places of worship in Oakland, and over 50% of houses in Oakland were built between 1940 and 1969. This increases the risk of lead exposure. And we transition to our final part, diagnosis and planning. For our first community nursing diagnosis, the risk for altered health management and community engagement among uninsured immigrant families in Oakland related to low income, lack of translation services, and lack of transportation, as evidenced by little to no presence of a cultural community, language barriers, and lack of availability of public transportation. Our second diagnosis, risk for nutrition imbalance. More than body requirements among individuals in the downtown area of Oakland related to lack of healthy food options, as evidenced by high obesity, mortality rates, and significant amount of fast food in the area. And for our third and final nursing diagnosis, the risk for complications from chronic disease development due to lack of preventative care and screening in uninsured and low-income individuals, as evidenced by not enough early screening, diagnosis, and intervention accessed by these individuals. Resources found in the Oakland community. Almost Home Chicago is an organization located in Oakland that provides healthy food, clothing, and shelter to those in need. The Be Well Free Clinic is located on 9741 Southwest Highway, which provides multilingual healthcare access to the uninsured and underinsured for physician consult, no cost/low cost medications, no cost, low access to labs or diagnostics, specialty referrals, and help with health insurance navigation. First United Methodist Church of Oakland partners with Southwest Chicago PADS to provide meals for neighbors in need, one evening each month. For seniors and handicap bus services, Oakland Community Service that provides transportation for seniors and the handicapped. Halted service, however, in April 2020 due to COVID-19. Interventions we can intervene with. Intervention 1, we can form a community group that will be involved in the health initiatives that will be offered to the community's uninsured immigrants' families. Another intervention we can do is to collaborate with other healthcare professionals, such as licensed nutritionists or dietitians, to lead nutrition education and counseling. And lastly, we are able to provide flyers with a common list of manageable chronic diseases like cardiovascular diseases, diabetes, osteoporosis, arthritis, multiple sclerosis, lupus, asthma, Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, hyperthyroidism. With these flyers, we're able to offer information about the screenings for this disease and places that can provide the services for low cost for uninsured individuals. Our references. Thank you for listening. We hope this windshield survey has provided enough information for fun. If we have any questions, feel free to ask. For now is our designated time. Thank you.
Great job.
I was just checking if you can hear. I don't want to go through that again.
Thank you so much for, I really thank Ibrahim and I'm gonna go back, and Ashley and Biljana and Benedict and Vernita for presenting this beautiful, beautiful study in the community assets. And we actually have an expert on community asset who's attending your presentation, Dr. Rebecca Johnson. I'm actually, everyone is allowed to talk. So if you can unmute and join the conversation. And I think it would be nice if we would join up as a conversation instead of typing and doing a quick QA, because it's a small group.
I would like to say something. My name is Nancy. I'm the professor from Oak Point University for this clinical rotation, which is community healthcare of communities and population focused care. And this nursing student group represents the first group that's come through the Be Well Clinic for Clinicals. And I'm so happy and proud to have them on board. They did a fabulous job working with the patients over the last 8 weeks. And this is their last week at the Be Well. And they did this fabulous windshield survey and also started the first smoking cessation class last week and helped create a community garden out in front. So they've really accomplished a lot in this time. And I wanted to thank Fatima for allowing us to hold our clinicals at the Be Well Clinic. It really touches on almost every aspect of community health that we're learning in the didactic.
And thank you, Nancy, for choosing us to partner, and thank you for bringing your students out here, because it's really been a great experience for us to exchange the information and their learning experience. So the floor is open, and as usual, I have tons of questions, but I would like the attendees to go first in Q&A. Any questions? Hi, Nika. So glad that you're here. She's one of the data experts. She's beautiful with data analysis, and she understands that she actually presents her data in Tableau. So she took some of our data from Worry-Free Community for the whole year for the insurance, and she actually converted that into graphics and came out showed us the trends in our work. She does beautiful. Oh, she can't talk right now. Dr. Johnson, any question that you have?
Yeah, I have lots of questions.
So I was trying
to type them or
like to talk.
You can't talk.
Why can't we hear?
Yeah.
I can hear you now.
You can hear me. Excellent. Okay, so I have. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed that, and I have a lot of questions. So
There's a lot of echo. You know what? I'm gonna see if we can help that echo.
Just one computer needs to be on.
Okay.
So who you have yours on?
Yeah.
Okay, then let me unmute mine. Okay. Yeah, you need to turn yours off.
No. She mean your phone.
The speakers. Everyone's speakers need to be turned off.
My speaker is muted ever since we started.
Okay, Dr. Becca, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, so I really liked to learn more about the actual what everybody took away from the doing the windshield survey. So I don't think I quite caught how you were capturing the how you're making the observations. So and why you felt that was a good method for learning about the community. I'd love to hear more about that. Perhaps I
Who wants to
invite
go?
each of you to say something. Yeah, so maybe Benedict, you start first, and then each of you say what you took away from that method.
Okay, Benedict.
Sorry, I didn't really understand the question. Could you repeat one more time? I'm sorry.
You need to, so the method you use, the windshield survey, the method. Can you say a little bit more about how you did it? So my understanding is it's called windshield because you sit in the car and you drive around and you look for you know, it's almost, so is that what you did, or did you walk around? How did you go about collecting the observations?
Oh yeah, so we did a little bit of both. So we kind of walked during our lunch break. We would walk around during our lunch break and we just take photos, especially for the like the cities and stores wise. And then we divided our work in a sense where one person who lives nearby, they will drive around more for like the medical resources and like a lot of like the other things.
Hang on just a second. Does everybody's microphone is off?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And mine is on and my speakers are on.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yes.
I just don't want any echo.
No, I think we're good.
Yeah.
But no, so we're good because she can hear me.
Okay.
But going back to the question, we did a little bit of both. We walked and we did like a little surveillance during our breaks. And then we also basically did like a surveillance outside of clinical hours and like just drove around and see like certain areas that like fit out like the description based on like each section.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to share what they, so that's really lovely. Thank you. That's nice. I like to know that. So, I mean, there's so many things. Did you notice there were busier times when you had your breaks, or did you, how did you pick out the things that you wanted to show us today?
Yeah, we did a lot of it during lunch, so it was really busy. That's why we were able to kind of capture like a little bit of like the weaknesses, because one of the things we mentioned was like, I don't remember specifically if it was a weakness, but I also mentioned public transportation because it's coming from someone who like comes from Wicker Park. I was actually one of the few students who had to Uber here, and I think I was the first one to notice how kind of not commuter friendly Oak Lawn was. So I wanted to make sure and like emphasize that as like one of like the weaknesses too, because I feel like for other individuals who live here, I can't imagine how hard it must be sometimes, especially during winter, to like have access to like special like maybe healthcare needs, maybe like even getting healthy groceries and all that.
No, that's a really great point. That's a really good point. So for you, it's transportation. So what about you know, somebody else on the call? Was it something else that the windshield survey enabled you to sort of really hone in on?
I drove around and looked at the resources in the neighborhood, like the medical resources, the gym, the fast food availability compared to grocery stores and fresh food. And we drove around, like she said, at different times during lunch. I noticed things because I come off the highway at 294 and come down. I noticed different things at different times of the day. And we did do a day that we drove around at different times, different areas. And even though I'm living from the western suburbs, I'm in the south suburbs a lot. So I was able to see it like at night. And I'm familiar with the area because I'm familiar with Hope Hospital. So yeah.
Yeah. No, that's really cool. And I loved the focus on the slide where you all had the range of different churches. So you've got lots of different denominations. You've got sort of the Catholic, Muslim. So Biljana, was you, wasn't it? So did you is that what you took away from it? Were you noticing the variety of denominations as you were going around the community?
Yes, yes, that was one of the things we noticed. And yeah, because we know that most of the, the most of the population that we dealt with was from Muslim population, but we found out that the way they practice is in a nearby town, which was Worth, Illinois. Is it me?
And Ashley and Ibrahim, what you sorry, Ibrahim, you were talking about some of the data and the health data. So were you, there was some really interesting things there about the high blood pressure, wasn't there, and the sort of the impact that the populations, that the conditions which were the census data anyway has observed. So a question to you both, Ashley and Ibrahim, is have you started having experience as nurses? Are you starting to meet patients? So if you got a sense of the conditions that are coming through the door, does it match the census data?
It does, because so that was one of the patients that I followed through the whole time. So that definitely it made the statistics correct, and as well as diabetes as well. A lot of the patients did have hypertension that came in through the doors.
And obesity.
And obesity, yeah, obesity is a big one too.
The nursing diagnosis with lack of screening in those populations. Yeah, because a lot of them didn't have the pap smears done or all the others.
So there is a lack of screening in this area as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that is
A
major.
lot of preventive services,
Yes.
they don't have screenings for.
Because like
We know.
most population at certain age, like at 40, you get your first mammogram, you start pap smears and then colon screening and other risks. So that was something that was very small amount done in the people that we met here. Because all those questions are there and they're there to be filled out, but they're not done. And it was not like a priority, but it should be, because that's how we catch things before they get worse.
Right.
But even before people even have symptoms.
As their new medical home, this is the place where they come, but those quality indicators pop in on the bottom of that left tab. And they aren't, the doctors aren't putting them through to those screenings. Probably because they're uninsured. I don't know, or we don't know where we would send them.
Or if there's not even enough time, because they were already addressing all these other things very thoroughly. Yeah, which is amazing, that's a big part of what you guys do here. That was good to see.
Yeah.
And they still have half hour, every patient gets a half hour slot.
Yeah, which is generous compared to hospital side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I love also, Ibrahim, I like the slide where you had the difference between mortality and morbidity. And I think that's because I really like what you're saying about screening, but because there are so many morbidities, how do we screen for all of them in a way that helps? So I like your interventions. I like, what you were suggesting was really good, but there seemed to be a need to screen for quite a lot of conditions. And then there also seemed to be a need for sustaining that as well. And I'm really interested to see what ideas you have about once you've got somebody screened, how do you then keep going, keep them interested, keep them going, to motivated to manage their care.
Yes, Dr. Good morning. So a really good way that I believe is just engaging in therapeutic relationship with them and make them feel a part of their own healthcare. So many of the patients that we see come in without the knowledge that they need in order for their current or past health conditions, and us engaging in relationships with them make them more open to hearing and actually take the data for what it's worth and not just brush it off. And they seem more interested, they participate more, and they're more likely to continue forth with whatever it may be, whether it's
going to see a consult more frequently or staying on top of their medications and whatnot.
And then talking to the interdisciplinary team, because the doctors give a lot of resources to them.
And the doctors have a lot of resources that they graciously offer. And with us being able to communicate with the interdisciplinary team, that allows us to give the patient what they need for the best possible outcomes.
Sorry, I was just muting myself. I think, thank you. And I think that's coming to the next point, which is, for me, all of you are very, very important in this equation of keeping people going, motivated. So have you begun thinking about what you'll do with that information? So you've got these sheets that you're saying, you know, one of your diagnoses was you have this information. So thinking about the patients that you'll be dealing with, can you think of ways in which you can communicate that information, which makes it stick?
Yeah, mainly through patient education. Like far as screening wise, like you said, we can collaborate with the doctors to offer screenings. We did a screening, we did a data assessment of our own and collected data on a large population here, are smokers. So we did a survey and, you know, educated them on smoking cessation. And we held our first smoking cessation class last week, Tuesday. And so, which was very successful because they were really interested in, one person asked, do we have it every week? So,
Yeah.
so if we start to feel like, yeah. We can have a health screening day and maybe screen for lead poisoning or screen for, you know, different things.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There was one of the patients that I experienced with the doctors, which was one question that I always find on my mind, because initial hypertension, most of the time, initially people don't have symptoms, although the blood pressures are as high as in the 200s. And then the doctors explain to the patient that even one of the main reasons why it's important to manage this blood pressure is because over time it can cause other damage to other organs like the kidneys. So that was kind of better to stick with the patient that I really need to correct this before it gets way worse.
Yes, absolutely. And that takes time, doesn't it? That takes a lot of time to do that. Yeah. So what do you see your roles are, you know, in terms of what would you like to do with this information? How are you going to use the information that you've collected?
It was good approach to review the community, because going forward, you know, we might not practice it all alone, but it just puts a new point of view of how you see the whole community, not just the patients that walk into the door.
Yes, that's nice.
It also gives the Be Well Clinic some information on what are the needs of the community, what they can move forward in trying to assist the community.
Yes, it does. That's a great point. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And I think we should be using this data with Nancy and with doctors. And I think we need to create that type of interdisciplinary teams that actually supports all different types of the needs of so this survey is instrumental in our strategic planning, Nancy.
Yeah, I mean, we've already started to capture, as soon as things were recognized, when FETSA recognized there was a lot of smokers, without asking people if they smoked, how would we know that? So as soon as we started asking them, it was almost every single patient was a heavy smoker. Some had quit, but many wanted to quit. And that was really important data to support the impact. And also for obesity, we know that these high rates of hypertension and diabetes that are described in Oak Lawn, we're seeing right here in the clinic. So we know that the highest problem is hypertension by quite a bit. And that high number correlates with what we're seeing in Oak Lawn. And we know that if we can get people's weight down, we can bring those numbers down too. But also simple teaching, like the population that we're seeing, when they start to feel better, they stop taking their pills. So just something as simple as taking it every day, adding activities, watching their salt intake. So all of these things are things that we can integrate, because we know that the vast majority of this population comes here from El Naja, which is a mosque community. which is a target for education that's tailored to that population, which is primarily Arabic. We've been capturing ethnicity and culture. We've had very few patients that were not Arabic speaking, very few. And so we know that most of them also come from Palestine or from Jordan, or Jordan through Palestine. So now we've got this other population of patients that Dr. Johnson, we only just started screening for depression and anxiety. We only added it a couple weeks ago. And as you can see that the students had pointed out, 1 in 5 residents of Oak Lawn have depression. So to see what it looks like in this community and see where it's coming from, it came up in the smoking class, talking about what is a trigger for smoking. 2 of the 2 smokers that spoke said it was because they were lonely.
Yeah.
They were lonely. That's why they were smoking. One of them said, my cigarettes are expensive, but they're always there.
Wow.
I'm happy. If I'm sad, my cigarette is there for me. So knowing that information, we know that things that don't show up in the statistics, in the numbers like that, is something we can do in a community because we have relationships with these people. And they were all they were asking for a second class, which is where you want to be. We didn't want to say, let's do a support group. We said, let's just do a luncheon because people come for the food. And they all wanted to come back. They wanted to bring someone. So this is where you start and let it grow organically. But, when you talk about what's at stake in smoking, they do want to quit. The one who is a truck driver is the one who said it's going to be hard because he sits in the truck all day and then he goes to the truck stop where all the other truckers smoke. So how you get him out of there to get him to a place where he can be quitting with other truckers. So we were going to be able to we can plant the seed, right?
Yes. Yeah. No, I think that's so interesting because I was wondering whether did that make you all think of smoking slightly differently?
Yes.
Yeah.
You don't see smokers in this country anymore. Thank
Yeah.
God. But they're not coming from this country. These days are like 4 and 5 packs a day. 2 and 3 packs a day. They can't afford food, but they're buying cigarettes.
Yeah. I noticed that when I first started to move, when I first thought that this community needed help and the community partner, Brother Hassan, reached out to us asking that why can't we have some type of clinic setting out here. So I canvassed the area and the very first thing I saw was the number of smoking shops, the hookah lounges, and like, what is this happening in this community and why do we have the exorbitant amount of smoke shops out here? Even grocery store, there's a huge section of cigarette packs, huge section.
And
I mean,
catering to the people who are spending money on cigarettes here.
yeah, so knowing that this is in every other shop is keeping or housing the cigarette packs, there's got to be a lot that type of prevalence in this community, which means that's the beginning of many different morbidities.
Because nobody comes in and says, I'm coming to the clinic because I'm a smoker or because I'm overweight.
Yeah.
But they're
Or
coming in
even I'm depressed.
or depressed, right?
Yeah.
That's very true. So they come in because they're having a problem with their lungs, right?
Oh, yeah, we had the one patient that had those non-healing wounds. And, yeah, and they were like, they were there for a few years. And then the doctor was like, do you smoke? Yes.
Yeah.
Do you think about quitting?
Oh,
But that was,
wow.
because it does not allow the healing to happen. That was your patient.
Yeah.
Wow.
Smoking, so we weren't healing, like because of it. You know, you really have like an interesting quitting.
Yeah.
So I feel like explained it to him, like explain like you gotta quit smoking, so like you help your circulation and everything, your lungs come in. But that's basically what happened.
Yeah, they're in that place, they're pre-contemplative where they're not even thinking about it, some of them are, but like some of the younger trends are the vaping.
Which we are about to find out how bad it is as well. Because the data is coming out.
But I like this setting so much. When Oak Point came out to tour, they were concerned that there wasn't enough volume of patients. But you can see with 8 patients in 1 week and the patients follow them, and build a relationship and really understand the connection, they're going to take that with them no matter where they end up, because you can really see how what they do in the community where they live and work and pray, that's where really health happens, right? That's a definition of public health. So when you're in a hospital setting in these little isolated bubbles where you discharge them and don't know what's going on, here we even see the doctors kind of have to process things differently. Okay, let's send him for these meds. Well, where are you going to send him? He doesn't have any insurance. How is he going to pay for it? How are you going to get an x-ray? And then you send him for labs and he doesn't follow through. Who's going to call him and say, do you know where to go? Can I help you with that? So just having all those extras are really still all about relationship, you know, building trust. This community needs trust, which is what we're working on. So.
No, that's cool. And I think one you were taking, that was great. You had pictures of resources in the community, so you had examples of but I was wondering, do you have the CVS hubs, you know, these health hubs, are they available? So in terms of where people can get their medications from, I think that might have been on a list on one of the slides. There was a list of all the different types of resources. Is that something?
We have tested the hubs, by the way.
Yeah, I was wondering that.
Yeah, so I myself, and this is interesting. So there was this one particular patient I remember. This happened to about 3 patients so far. But this one particular patient I remember, I did it with her because she actually had insurance. She came into the clinic because her doctor's office wasn't picking up the phone. And she said, I can't. Eventually, they picked up the phone. They were giving her the appointment that was 4 weeks delayed. She said, I need to see the doctor now because I am my brother has these last 4 pills of blood pressure left. And between him and me, it's only going to last a day. So she needed to get the drugs the drugs refilled right away. So I said, okay, let's take you there. Let's take you to different places. And we went to the urgent care at Advocate. They said, well, this is not urgent, and she needs to have an appointment, which was a month later. Then I took her to one of the other primary care that she has. They said, well, the appointment is again 4 or 5 weeks later. Then I took her to the CVS clinic, and they have a long questionnaire that you have to fill out to determine if the matter is urgent or not, or the clinic can see her or not. And after going through 15 minutes of that Q&A, which she could not have because she had there was a language barrier, and she's an older lady who doesn't navigate the computer screens. So she couldn't have done that for herself. So I stood there and I asked her the questions. I did the prompts, and at the end they said, well, call this number to get your appointment with the nearest doctor. That was the CVS clinic. And without a prescription, they will not refill her meds. So now these patients are in a catch-22 situation where the urgent care doesn't see them. They haven't established their primary care setting. So where would they go to establish a primary care setting? There are no hubs like that. And all of these different barriers they have, they need actual help to navigate through the system.
So that's that. Yes. So Nancy, and do you think that's a role for nurses, or is that? I mean, obviously there are problems with the system.
But, yeah. This is a perfect question for you. Yeah. Oh my God, I want to drag you into this conversation. By the way, Dr. Johnson is actually a social scientist. She's a researcher. She's an avid researcher, and she's an avid grant writer. So she works with Northwestern University, and she does also freelance research projects, and she is she's the founding member of Pastors for PCOR. that does patient-centered outcomes research, and they've been doing it for past 10 years now. So she's really embedded into this community health and so if you have a social scientist question, you can go to her to get an authentic answer.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Yes, please.
Thank
Yes,
you
I'm
so
very
much.
happy.
There is a dilemma, Dr. Johnson.
Yeah.
Nancy, not a dilemma. I think it's two different models, and we're trying to test out, or maybe the solution lies somewhere in the middle. Nancy has 30 plus years or 40 plus years, Nancy, experience of community health nursing. No, faith-based nursing. 30 plus years. Yeah, that's right. It would be too old. That's right. I forgot about that. So she has done faith-based community health nursing for 30 years, and she wants to promote the community health nursing in the hospitals. The hospitals, unfortunately, or you want to promote nursing, community health nursing in the faith-based setting. Faith-based setting, that's what it is. The hospitals used to have a faith-based component of a nursing arm of the faith-based community, but they kind of have shrunken that department quite a bit. And you don't see that. The discharge planning, you see it's pretty scaled down and primarily specific to the clinical settings, not the, we go with county health ranking model, right? So there are all of these different aspects of county health ranking model that nobody else is bringing that in when it comes to the discharge planning. But in the community health setting, where people needs to have these hubs and interventions can be at any, interventions can relate to any discipline from economic to income to education. They're not just clinical, right? So the community health workers offer support, but the community health, there's no community health workers that are trained good enough to really support that model.
No.
And that entire discipline is really in embryo stages. Whereas faith-based nursing has matured and does offer this very specific and very robust help.
Yes.
The problem with that is it can be very expensive for the entire community or for the entire cities. Now, how do we tackle this?
Yes. Yeah.
So Dr. Johnson, faith community nursing is very lively in the Christian community. It's national and also international. But I'm taking it to the Muslim community who don't quite understand preventative care yet. And so right now I'm in the process of revising the scope and standards of practice. Part of my role that I'm working on right now with Faith Community Nurse Group, and I'm in Faith Community Nurse International Research Committee. So the problem is right now with all the cost containment, traditionally faith community nurses are hired from a healthcare system through their Department of Mission and Spiritual Outreach. But those departments are, since many hospitals are forming mergers just to stay afloat, it's not a priority because it's not something that brings money in.
Yeah.
It's not like surgery. So many faith community nurses have had to find their own funding, and probably 2/3 are volunteer. So, so right now in the Muslim community, my struggle is I can't find a source of sustainable funding because we have no such thing as a Muslim hospital yet. There's like one in Texas that just is opening, and maybe one starting in Chicago because some philanthropist brought out Mercy Hospital. But to go to Muslim organizations to understand, for them to understand what I'm doing, there's money for what we're doing.
Yeah,
but the
I believe
priorities
so.
are not going to it because they don't quite understand the concept of nursing yet, because so many are immigrants. So to understand how independent nurses can function independently in this role, like school nurses function. That's the teaching that I'm doing right now, and trying to have them understand we're already comprehensive. We've been doing this since the late 70s. We know what we're doing, but they also are a physician-driven culture.
Yes.
Muslims, and you get good grades, you either go to medical school or you become an engineer. So if I start to work with a Muslim community, they call me doctor because they assume I must be a doctor because I'm functioning at a higher level of what they're as a nurse. So I'm teaching from both sides, which is what I'm used to since I've been working on this project. It's the same thing with chaplains and hospice. Chaplains have been asked to minister to Muslim patients without any training in what Islam is through seminary, nothing at all. So they're walking into a Muslim's room wearing a big cross around their neck.
Yes.
And the patients say, I don't want to see you. They're afraid they're going to proselytize because that's what they're used to. So I'm always been teaching on both sides. I have no doubt in my mind that this is the answer. Community health workers have funding right now through legal routes because they have data. Faith community nurses are very new at getting data. They have been personally taking care of the patient, not worrying about research, because it has been out of their realm, but now nurses are learning about research, and that's why it's so important to me to show impact. So Fatima has challenged with the comparative research possibility of comparing faith community nurses to community health workers, but I do like what she just said, that there's room for both. I think that the community health workers that are sticking are mostly college students who need those service hours, or somebody in the community with lived experience. But they need teaching, they need supervision, they need guidance, they need ongoing monitoring, and that's where the faith community nurse role comes in. So a faith community nurse works out of a faith community traditionally, but right now we did a survey last year to see where our numbers are, and there's lots of non-traditional roles that they're doing, working in clinics, working in combination of churches, working in all kinds of places, but adding the spiritual component for a truly whole person approach. So that's is a focus on the intentional care of the spirit, which is really the foundation for whole person care. You know, you're not just dealing with medical clinical diagnosis, you're also dealing with a person. And that's the difference. And that's what we're trying to bring to the Islamic community. I think it's a really good fit because so many Muslims are immigrants. They need help on all fronts, and they need help with navigation, and they need help understanding the culture, but they're holding on to their culture. Like a Hispanic community holds on to their language because it's so integral to their identity. Muslims are not coming here and assimilating. The women are not coming here and removing their hijab. They're keeping them. The younger generation, I'm curious to see what happens with them. But to have them fit into a system where they already look different is challenging because people assume they're different because they look different and they dress different.
Yeah.
At the heart, they're not all that different. It's the basic human needs of what's needed is not that different. And so to have acceptance on both sides without the fear of losing their identity, they need access into the mainline hospital system, but they're afraid to go there. So they go to their mosque, they go to their family, they go to their brother-in-law who is a doctor before they'd ever go to a doctor in a hospital, because he's not going to know what I'm talking about. He's got a different worldview. So these two is going to take more than just access. It's going to take facilitation, and it's going to take probably a generation or two for the current Muslims who are my age to integrate and to assimilate to a degree that discrimination is no longer the primary focus. Because the more they remain as strange and different and staying in their comfort zone, the more that perpetuates discrimination. So it's all tied up to way bigger issues than just one piece or another. You have to really approach the whole thing from systemic discrimination. All these different things factor into evening out the healthcare system for Muslim patients who are also wildly diverse.
But Nancy, the problem that you're describing as Muslim patients, I see that problems happening across the board, irrespective of if they're Muslims or not.
Which do you?
For example, the problem of uninsured or even or uninsured or even underinsured, or the problem of delayed care. That happens across the board. It has to do with the patient education. And when it comes to the acceptance of the faith community nurses, I see the same problem across the board, not just in Muslim community, in the rest of the communities as well. In fact, within the healthcare system, the faith community nursing component is actually going away. It's
Well-
there. It's not, they're not getting it on. They're actually trying to let it go more than they are keeping it on.
Well, that's because Christian communities are shrinking, but I don't see Muslim community, the percentage of Muslims who attend mosque on a weekly level is higher than 50%. So that's where you would reach Muslims. I'm not trying to reach everybody. I have a focus. This is my focus. That just like pediatrics, this is your focus, cardiology. My focus is faith community nursing right now. I've done hospice, I've done acute care. Right now, this is what I'm focusing on. This is where my interest is. So
Nancy, can I ask you? Can I ask you, when you say you're not trying to? I understand what you're saying, and I really understand the holistic approach and the way that faith is a really important part of that. So, is your aim to just reach Muslim populations, or is it faith generally?
I'm interfaith because of who I am, and
Right. Okay.
yeah, the faith community nurse groups are interfaith. We all meet together and share resources. But to tailor your programs to your population requires understanding of the faith practice and how it drives healthcare decisions, and how the culture and the faith come together to create the way that patients make decisions, and also to guide patients to make decisions for their healthcare that are based on their faith when they want that. So that's the population that I am working with right now. And I can tell you that there is also a shortage of physicians in rural. I know all of those things about public health. Yes, they're all true. And delayed visits is a big problem, yes. And there's lots and lots of problems in healthcare, but right now this is my focus.
Okay, no, I think that's wonderful, because and I was wondering what your students think as well, because I imagine you're not all it's not everybody's a Muslim in the group, but you have your own faith and you have your own sort of your own sense of and I was wondering, what do you think faith brings to the table? What is it how do you see that in operation in the patients that you see? Because I have seen it in my own experience. I have seen it work very powerfully, but I don't want to put the words into your mouth. I'd like to know what you've seen. What do you think? What do you think its role is in health and well-being?
I see that faith directs some of their healthcare choices, some of their beliefs, some of their diet choices, which also leads to healthcare problems. The faith is different in different communities. Some people believe they don't have to take medicine. If they pray, they'll be healed. So it depends on the faith, the level, but it does affect their care.
Yes. What about my observation is that it can also impact people's motivation and their ability to manage. Particularly, I've been working with groups about high blood pressure, because high blood pressure is big, particularly, and it's within the census data, it's identified as a problem with the African American community. But the way that when I've been talking to communities, they've been turning a weakness into a strength. So, but it's through the faith, it's through their belief that you can manage, and you can sort of, if you take the plunge and you sort of you believe that you can actually manage your high blood pressure. At the same time, people don't necessarily want to take the medication that's on offer. So as you were saying, there's also things going on, but it's a positive. I've seen this as a positive, a real help as part of somebody. The whole spiritual element of well-being is it's a strength. It can be a strength. Has anyone else observed it being, strength or a negative as well?
So far in terms of like faith, I've seen more of like the positives. I think coming from like personal experiences, I think I don't know how to describe it, but like faith was just like super like that's all my dad focused on when like my mom had a stroke. So when we were at the hospital and even outside the hospital, like I think they just kept praying. And then when my mom got better, got out of rehab, I think they kind of like, instead of like science is like the reason why she's still here today, I think they're like, oh, thank God that she's still here. Oh, the God is the reason why your mom is still alive. So I think because of that, like the faith is so strong that they think that, I don't want to say think, but they just believe that due to faith that it definitely shapes the way like they like individuals see healthcare. So that's definitely.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. So I hear you, Nancy, and I love the fact that you've got this wonderful group of students who are all sort of focusing on nursing. And that what concerns me a little at the moment is that there is such an emphasis on community health workers at the expense of, it's almost there sort of
there's funding, everybody jumps on the. But I mean, from what I've seen is when it very first came out, it was a lot of physicians or probably curiosity seekers, and now it's kind of dwindled down to that. But I'm seeing them being put in place in lots of places. And I have to tell you that Faith Community Nurses trialed community health workers years ago. And what we found was that when they went out in the community, we didn't know what they were saying, and they didn't always teach the patient the correct information, because they are not licensed people. So if it's gonna work, it's gonna take someone who is, guiding them, leading them, training them, monitoring them, and managing them, But something someone said recently, I thought, big community nurses are actually community health workers, right? I mean,
there are these false divisions, aren't there? That we categorize, we put people in silos according to professional groupings. And actually what we really need to think about is what does the community need, and then find the roles that go with that. Yeah.
Dr. Johnson, we looked at the 8 core competencies of the American Public Health Association's community health worker paradigm, right? There were 8 core competencies, and those 8 core competencies actually overlaps or correspond to the 13 different aspects of the county health ranking model. Now, I personally think that when it comes to finding resources, hooking patients up with community resources such as finding healthy food, here's your transport, here's the housing, here's all non-clinical type of work that doesn't relate to either the health behavior or any of the clinical aspect. All of that should fall into the worker bucket. And all of the stuff that relates to the health aspects or dimensions of health on the county health ranking model, that should go to the faith community. I think there is that should be the model that need to come out, because the 4 health major factors are transit and housing, social factors, health factors, and clinical care, right? So clinical care and health factors, where you have that correspond to about 50% of the care, that goes into the clinical bucket. And the social factors and the housing and transport, that's another 50% of the bucket, that should go to the health workers, because it's all non-clinical.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
And I think there should be a, and we can test this out on Athena actually, because we have that. We divvy these up, the markers and the questions and the screenings, and we place them such as a clinical component or the social work component. And we make sure that we collect the data on those 2 ends. and then compare the reports for different communities and how the model is working in.
The differentiating factor is that nurses do their own assessment. Nurses in a community function independently. They assess what's needed and then they plan it, implement it, evaluate it, do the whole 9 yards. And when there's something above their scope and standard of practice, they outsource and they set it up and they facilitate it and coordinate it. And they are they're the pivotal piece that things function around, but they don't do everything. They don't have to. But depending on the needs of that community and where their interests and gifts lie, that's where the focus generally turns out to be what's needed for the community. The community, when working within the North, they keep talking about domestic violence. And I said to them, look, yes, domestic violence is a thing, but we're not equipping them to function. I have a young couple who came to me because they had a lover's quarrel, their first lover's quarrel, and she's talking about domestic violence. But by all accounts, that was nothing to do with domestic violence, but now she heard that word. And so now she thinks everything is domestic violence. So she's pointing fingers and pulling in mother-in-laws and all kinds of stuff. Like, these kids are not being equipped with how to argue, how to have an argument that is constructive. How to.
It's a leadership thing.
So now, okay, let's have
It's a skill set.
building program where we have 6 series. We invite couples and we teach them what is, how do you get a marriage to be happy, rather than focusing on domestic violence. Focus on how to avoid domestic violence and have a happy marriage. What do you do to have a happy marriage? You know, so this is shifting the conversation. So much negativity, always the negative, focus on the negative. And the more energy you put into the negative, the more you're going to have a negative outcome. So shift that. And then people start thinking, okay, how can we do that? Let's approach this from this way. And it's just, sometimes it's just a way, it's taking the clinical out of it and looking at the person, the whole person, you know? That's why I think faith community nurses just,
you know,
the ability to use critical judgment, because they are a professional and they're a licensed professional who is trained in doing these things, that they take to the next level and then they put people in place where it's needed. So for those things, for social determinants of health, faith community nurses have always dealt with them, but they've also always outsourced, called the social worker, or do that. But no, I mean, I can see where we can form a model where we plug in the community health workers as part of the teams, so that things function kind of like clockwork. Like in hospice, I love the interdisciplinary team approach, because we had everyone at the table once a week and talked about every patient, who is needing this, what have we not thought of that the social worker brings in, or the chaplain brings in, or the nurse brings in, or you know what I mean? Yeah. And then you look at all dimensions of the patient, and then, believe me, that set the bar that now acute care settings are finally catching on to what grew up in the hospice setting. And now we're trying to bring it out into the community and translate it in a way that works for what you have budgeted for, because everybody seems like they're volunteer out here.
Okay.
I like that idea because, you know, I have some experience, and then so many times some issues. It's a different environment, but the referrals, so many times you refer the issue to social work and then it comes back because it wasn't done the right. It's so many times.
Let me close out the session. Thank you so much, everybody. Dr. Johnson, is there anything else?
No, just wanted to say thank you so much. I really enjoyed it, and I want to wish everybody the best in their careers. And I think they're going to do those surveys, the windshield surveys, wherever you around keep being observant like you were. It was wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining and for the feedback. Absolutely.
Yeah, we really appreciate you, Dr. Johnson.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.